Hi and welcome to BizToday. It's your weekly business show as always. I'm Nazreen Ibrahim. So we always get successful entrepreneurs in the studio and also discuss leading business topics of the day and look for experts in their particular fields. Today we've got a special guest in studio. It's the CEO of our channel Deen TV, Faizal Sayed. He'll be taking us through his entrepreneurial journey and telling us about his experience in the broadcast industry and the necessary characteristics required to be a successful entrepreneur in that space. We were also very fortunate to attend a workshop recently called the Shift Questions Workshop, sponsored by Nedbank and Raise Corp. And what is Raise Corp, you ask? Raise Corp is an incubation hub for entrepreneurs. It's based in Johannesburg, but there are branches around the country, Durban, Cape Town. And we spoke to the MD, or the CEO rather than the founder, Alon Raise. It was a rather interesting conversation with him about incubation spaces and how they help entrepreneurs. So be sure that you stay tuned for those interesting conversations. So we always get only the best and the most successful entrepreneurs in studio to inspire you so that you can learn from their journeys and their stories. And today we have a very special guest in studio, one of our own, so to speak. CEO at Deen TV, Faizal Sayed, has taken time out of his hectic schedule to share his entrepreneurial journey with us. You will know him more popularly as the host of the Faizal Sayed Show, which airs every weekday at 8 p.m. Today though, we focus on his life as an entrepreneur and what makes for a successful one, particularly in the broadcast industry, which for anyone starting out can be a tough place to secure your domain. Welcome to BizToday, Faizal.
Nazreen, it's a pleasure finally being on the other side.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yes, I must say that you say his life is an entrepreneur. You don't have one. Yeah. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't have one.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that a bit
course.
later, right? Whether we have a life or not and how important it is to have one.
Of course.
But you're in the studio now and you're going to be answering the questions instead of asking them. So describe Faizal Sayed.
It's a very interesting question because I think I'm a bit hectic. People call me that. I'm not talking from a schedule point of view. I think I'm hectic as a person.
Hectic as a person.
Yes, I try and maintain a certain decorum in everything I do, but sometimes it slips a bit away. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm a bit of a push for everything kind of thing, and that's to get things done. So I get nervous about not getting things done. I remember back in the day when in university, I studied some science and that type of thing. I'm not sure if you heard of a condition called alopecia.
Yes.
Now, alopecia is where your hair falls out in these patches.
Yeah.
And I would sit in the bottom of the lecture room, and on the top, people would kind of see that I had bald patches, and then I had to move up. And when we worked out why this happened, it was because I wanted things to happen now all the time, and I'm still that way. So that's who I am.
You were stressing out in the lecture theatre?
Yes. Because although exams was months away, but for me it was always about success. Success for me is not that vehicle, or it's not the watch that you wear, but success for me was getting done what I set out to do on that day. And I think that's who I am. It's about getting things done.
So it's pretty much about maintaining excellence throughout your life, or whatever.
I believe that
doing.
whatever we touch and do needs to be 100%, and if it's not, then I get finicky about that. Okay. But just describing me on a personal level, I don't do things that normal people do. I'm not very sociable, which you probably realized.
You're not socially acceptable, then?
Yes, if you want to put it that way. We might have a certain appearance because we're in media, but speaking to you on the down-rooted level of things, I prefer reading at night, doing research. I prefer dealing with news issues. I talk business all day long, so my friends don't last very long because they only sort of hear one subject. I go to the movies once every 6 months. And
once every 6 months?
Yes. I don't really go out. That's strange. You know, in this business, you get invited to events all the time.
Yes.
I see it as part of my job, so I go out, do the job, and I get back, but you're tired after that. I have an interesting family, and that's I'm not married yet, so my mother is my closest ally there, and lots of cats, and my dad's there, and that sort of thing. But I'm a very plain person, as I put that.
So,
simple.
If you've just described your personality, which is of course geared towards doing, building, driving some kind of desire or force, you want to build something. Seems like you're always on this path.
It's change. It's change with other people and myself. It's change for the better. It's something that really gets to me, and that is, I cannot take the drive to work in the morning and see a dog on the pavement. It changes my entire dynamic driving to work. So I drive to work not looking on the side, for example. I know it sounds strange to you that I'm saying that, but that is who I am. It's like I want to see things happening for people and animals and the plants and everyone. I want to see this utopia sometime, which I'm fast learning maybe is not going to exist. But can we work towards that utopia? And so I have this funny idea of life. It's very idealistic, but yeah, that's just me.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about your interest in, I think, community and social work a bit later. But what were some of your earliest entrepreneurial ventures?
It's a very interesting story. Someone asked me the other day, where was your first job? And I'm going to tell you that now, and this might blow you away. It was at Pep stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I told you.
No, I'm surprised. So
yes,
you were at Pep stores?
Yes, Pep stores.
What were you doing
I was
there?
much younger. They'd got a parcel counter, you know, where you give this little tag.
Were you in your teens at the time?
It was actually before my teens. Yeah, I was very young. And I'd gone casual there on a weekday. And
Great place to start.
Earning 6 rand a day. 6 rand a day.
That was quite some time ago.
It's a long time ago. But it's an interesting story, and I'll tell you why. So you simply giving the parcel to someone and you get that tag.
Yeah.
So it was all about looking after somebody's items in the time. So there's a responsibility involved me. I go to university and something else happens. I start selling car audio to pay for my university fees and stuff like that. I don't come from a very affluent background, so I was sort of making these things for myself. The wealth that my parents has given me was in character and to make sure that I do things and that I serve people. And that's the greatest wealth over financial wealth that my mother could have given me. When I think about that in retrospect, that for me was great wealth. I'm thinking now about these days in university. I was earning quite a lot of money in university. I'll tell you why. I would earn about 15,000 rand a month in university. And how that happened was that back in the day we bought a PlayStation.
So you were earning 15,000 rand a month?
Yes.
And how long ago was this?
That's in 1994.
And that was a lot of money at the time.
Yes, and I'll tell you why and how that happened. I hope the taxman doesn't hear this part. I was just starting out kind of thing. But in any case, what happened there was that, I don't know if you know these things, they call it PlayStations, where these gaming consoles. And so we had the Sony PlayStations, and I had one, and I got bored of it very soon. And then I decided that I could rent this thing out and make like 30 bucks a day or something like that. Yeah. So I rent this machine out, and I saw like, oh, I'm making 30 bucks every day and 10 rand per game, and I had about 200 games. So earning 50, 60 rand a day was like,
that's pretty cool.
Yes, and people were coming. And I eventually bought another machine and another machine. I had 12 machines after a while, and I was renting them out from home. And I then gave them off to a video store, and the video store rented that out for me, and we split the money. But basically, this is a passive income of 500-600 rand a day, because 12 machines plus the games, passive income of 15,000 rand a day.
And also pretty clever, because you decided, well, why not diversify even further? Let me go to the video stores and ask them to rent it out on my behalf.
It's the smallest, biggest franchise. That's what it was. Yeah. So that's where that happened, and then obviously after that, getting into media and stuff, and I'll talk to you later on about that, how we turned the first deal and what that actually meant to me to turn those kind of videos overnight.
But, I mean, the university experience, those were moments in your life when you had an opportunity to be an entrepreneur or to display that. It wasn't a full-time initiative at the time. But at which point in your life did you realize, I now want to own my time and not get busy building someone else's dream? Because that's a critical point, right?
I think that's always been built in me. I've always felt that way from young already. Yeah. I realized that to change the world, you need to be sort of in control of certain things that allows you to change the world. So that's what my approach was. The one interesting thing about that, and there was a defining moment, if I recall, I was casted as an actor in a coffee ad for Germany. So it was university days, and I remember rocking up there. It was on the top of a hill. There were helicopters flying around. It was a 30-second commercial, but there were helicopters around. There was a tent on top of this peak, and we had to come crawling out of the tent, lifting up this cup of coffee, like doing that like 50,000 times while the sun is rising. And there's all these extras that were running around the place and doing kinds of things. When I looked at that, Nazarene, I thought to myself, you know what? 1,000 people to shoot this 30 seconds. Helicopters, all kinds of shots going on. So the people that were making money, there was not the actor who I was playing the role. I maybe made, I think, 3,000 Rand for the day or something. But to have all of this happening to shoot the ad,
Was much more
the
money.
producer was making the money. And that's where I decided I need to get on the other side of the coin.
Was that your first
That was
entry
my
into
first
the
entrance,
broadcast
yes.
world?
I then was in that little World Cup ad, the Cricket World Cup ad, doing a little thing there. So a lot of things started happening from that point. But that's where my brother and I decided we need to open up a casting agency, because I told him there's 1,000 people on set, so open a casting agency instead. And we tried that. We had a very interesting experience. Can I tell you about this experience?
Please do.
We start this casting agency. It's the time now is the time of the bombing of the World Trade Towers.
That's 2011.
Yes,
back
yeah.
in 2011.
Yes, so that's the time. The new office is open. Brother and I, very green at that stage.
Were you done with university at the time?
I was in between,
Okay.
yes. I still do a bit of studying up till now, so we'll talk about that later. And what happens is, we decide, as you know how casting agency works, you have all these people on your books, and then you need to go to the film companies, and the film companies need to then say, we want to take this person from you and that person. So we were starting all of that up. In any case, go to this one film company, I'm not going to mention the name right now, and this lady sits there and she says to us, after the meeting, the two of you do not belong in the business. There was some demographic problem with that, because back in the day that the color was a bit different of the industry. We thought it was that, coupled with the idea that my brother and I looked like, I mean, pulling up with this little Uno outside, that we just didn't know what we were doing. And the Uno was like handles falling off and mirrors falling off kind of thing.
Sure.
And here's this two guys promising this
So
film
it
company.
seemed to them like you had no clue what was going on,
What
yet you
was
had a
going on.
solid business idea.
Yes, yeah. And it was only a business idea at that time.
Sure.
And then what happens is, 2 weeks later, I'm reading the newspaper and I see the same lady in the newspaper with a picture of Steven Seagal on one side and her.
Great.
And Steven Seagal and his company, they were shooting a movie called The Red Telephone. And they removed that production from Cape Town because this lady's company was supposed to explode a vehicle off the jetty at the waterfront in Cape Town as the car emerges off the jetty.
Yeah.
But this collector's item car exploded under the water 3 times and they couldn't find a 4th one, messing up the entire script. And the film company pulls out of South Africa due to that. And I pick up the phone and say, XYZ, you know what? Don't think you belong in the industry. Threw the phone down.
So you had the last laugh at the end of this.
It wasn't about that. I decided something else at that stage, that nobody is going to determine what I want to do.
And also to be able to tell you that you can or can't do
Yes,
this.
exactly. I don't believe that anybody's in control of your destiny but yourself.
What I like also is that you identified in your brother at the time, you saw a particular need, and that was, well, there's a whole lot of, filming going on, and Cape Town's known for being the
Yes,
center of.
it's a daily event, yes.
Exactly. You've got, I think, the biggest film studios in
Correct,
South
yes.
Africa there. But at the time you were looking at, well, you couldn't maybe afford or venture into what you wanted to do, was be the producer behind the entire show. But you identified a particular service that's complementary or runs alongside that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to understand that, or young business people, is that even if you can't service the market yet on a product or a service that you want to offer, there are many instances in which you could still service that need by offering something complementary to that.
I think you mentioned it. I think it's about filling a need. And I think most entrepreneurs look for a niche and they develop a niche into an exploding market. So so they start in a niche and they develop things. Or
innovate in a way. Yeah.
Yes, and innovate. So I think most entrepreneurs take that approach of finding those niches and then developing and effecting change within that industry through that niche.
So a lot of people think that television is a very glamorous thing because it's what you see. You're heading up Deen TV now, and it's a massive network. You've got to provide content, look for great talent, ensure that you're on 24 hours a day, and that people are happy ultimately. Well, most of the time anyway. What is that challenge like? What is the building of the business like? Because there are a lot of tough challenges. How do you manage those?
It's an interesting one, Azreen. It's been 3.5 to 4 years, but it's been about 12 years prior to that.
Because it's an actual business that you're building from the ground up.
Why I say the 12 years before that, because the 12 years before that in the industry is what I plow into the business right now.
You've had a long broadcast industry, exactly.
Yes, the business doesn't require the 10,000 hours. It requires 40 to 50,000 hours.
Sure.
I'm sorry I say that to many people. It's not like any other business. want to open up a shop, buy stock and sell it, I think that's a business, and it's a great business to be in. Yeah. But this is a business and a business involved here. This is a strategy. It's understanding people, understanding markets, understanding growth and development, and tapping into people and their philosophies and ideas and getting into all of that. And then it's having an understanding of what happens politically, medically, socially, to be able to put all of that together. So it's this broad understanding of things to be able to deal with that. I think if you look at the growth pattern of the channel, there are various aspects that come into play there. One of the advices that I can give to anyone around that is strong partnership. Strong partnership is very key, especially in a business like this. There's no way that the media entity can operate with the brains of one person. It's got to be different people. It's got to be a financial head. It's got to be a content head. It's got to be a few heads that makes up this one head. And I think that's where we've kind of breached that gap at the moment with regards to that.
You're one of the, again, what you say, and I've heard this with other entrepreneurs we've interviewed on the show, is that partnerships are key. Be they, if you've built a strong partnership, if you have a life partner, if you have a business partner, whatever it may be. But the partnership always helps build a better business, and we're hearing it from you yet again. So from another successful entrepreneur, which should say to aspiring entrepreneurs that it should be better for partnerships. But that's a debate that I'm still having with a lot of colleagues is, would you build a better business because you have the certain dream and you're building it on your own, or should you get, a range of partners or a single partner? So that's an interesting one, but I think we'll have that debate at another time. What I'm also interested to know is, as a business, and we just talked about this innovation, and you're in the perfect space for innovation because it's the industry that we're in is television, digital, technology. It's continually changing. It's very fluid. How are you able to meet the demands of a changing climate all the time? Because tech and digital are the underlying factors of most industries these days. So what is that like for you in building the channel?
It's an interesting question. I believe that it's about being on top of things all the time. I think that it's a lot of forward planning. I think that I know that we had this philosophy in South Africa in the past where we looked to the West to see, and we always understood that we were slightly behind in the industry all the time. Strangely enough, the world has become a smaller place now with digital media. So what's happening is that we are constantly looking around saying, how do we change what we're doing to keep on par with what's going on in the world? There's this concept called media convergence, which we are very focused on at the moment. For example, let's use the media convergence model as an example to this. So you say you have a television broadcast. So you take the television broadcast, put that on a website, stream that. Stream the audio into a radio medium. Take the news on the bulletin, put that on the website. Take that from the website, put it onto social media. I don't know if you can see that it's no longer television only. No,
you repurpose the content across channels.
Correct, yes. And the reason for that is, and this is what you're calling as part of that innovation that you speak about. And then there's other levels of innovation. It's understanding where we're going, not only from a technology point of view, but what does the world need in terms of content? Are people saying today that health, lifestyle makes a big difference to them? Is it health that's an issue? Is it education? And you take that and you decide to take that and run with that from a content point of view. So there's that level of innovation in terms of content innovation and technological innovation at the same time. And then I think we innovate as people also. If you look at back in the day, broadcasters, very distant to the community. We are sitting there as a broadcaster, so you watch us every day on TV. That has changed in my space. I believe that the channel is more a political party at this stage. We go out there, we deal with the people. What's your problems like? Can we talk about it on TV and see if we can lobby other people to help you? That's what a political party does. And I've taken that approach, saying, can we get out on the road? And I know you're a host on one of our shows, and we're telling all our presenters that, can you go out and deal with the real issues?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And also get the people who are experts in their fields to be able to
100%.
have 100% knowledge sharing.
Correct.
Because that's what we need, right? So you've been, if I remember correctly, your broadcast experience spans around 15 years in the industry.
It's back in the day. Started with SABC and E, provided lots of programs to them, provided weekly programs to them. A lot of the Muslim community knows me from a program called Ramadan at 4, which was an innovation. And I probably use that word in a very sly way at the stage. It was an innovation.
But it was at the time.
Yes, it was.
Because there was no programming that was
and there was
suitable.
no continual programming on the national broadcaster that was daily, that was Islamic. So for them it was like, what is this guy up to? I don't think it's going to work, but he wants to buy the time at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's fine, sell him the time at 4 o'clock in the morning. 2 years later, there was a fight for the time at 4 in the morning on all the channels. So what I'm saying is that I think it's about seeing niches, and it's about filling
identifying
those
those opportunities
Yes.
where it doesn't seem very apparent at the time.
Correct, yes. And then the other thing with finding those niches and that innovation that you speak about is that people will come to you talking about why you should not be doing things a certain way. And I always ask the question, how many times have you done it? If you haven't done it, don't advise me.
I agree.
Sorry, man, I'm very blatant about it.
Well, it should be that way, because if you don't have prior knowledge or experience to be able to advise, then
Yes.
it pretty much doesn't have any basis to be able to go on.
Correct.
You've been an entrepreneur for quite a while. You're building a channel. The challenges are immense, as are the successes that come with them. What would you say are the necessary important character traits for a person who wants to be successful as an entrepreneur?
I think it's a combination of a few things. I noticed a few things about entrepreneurs, and that's they're hectic about what they do. We understand that. But I think that people need to remain grounded all the time. I feel that it's a grounded level of speaking to people nicely, smiling with people, being approachable, that allows people to deal with you further.
Yeah.
I think that's a big component about delivering on a brand and being able to deliver a brand to people. I feel that brand focus is a big issue. Everything is about brand for me. If I can have my logo imprinted on your scarf, t-shirt, ring, earring, I promise you I will do it. Everything is about brand for me. And then I think it's about also surrounding yourself with the correct people. I have realized in the past that maybe it's nice to be associated to someone and bring him into the business because he's a friend of mine, but those dynamics change when the person doesn't have the expertise to do that. So my advice to people around that is to make sure that friendships are not business relationships. And you don't start a business relationship based on a friendship. You start a business relationship based on somebody's quality in terms of delivery and expertise into the business, not on the friendship.
And those are indeed wise words, I think, because a lot of times people think, oh, well, if we're great as friends, we're going to be great as business partners.
No, you could end up enemies because things get tough in business. There are tough calls in business. There's times that you sit with people all your life in a business environment, but there's going to be this day in the boardroom that happens very often that you say, excuse me guys, we are not friends today.
Reminds me of the Steve Jobs case where he walks into the boardroom.
It's a classic example, and he gets thrown out of
fires the person closest to him.
Correct.
And you're watching in absolute horror that the person who helped him, I think it was Steve Wozniak.
Yes.
And he said to him, said to the lawyers, I think I'm going to take away his percentage and we don't have anybody on the original board anymore. And watching that particular scene, I was gobsmacked.
And you think today, why is Apple where it is today?
So it's the relationships that you build are crucial. And talking about surrounding yourself with the correct people, how important is a mentor to you as a CEO?
That's an interesting one. It depends on which level you're asking me about the mentor. I think that mentors come in different forms to people. Right. I break them up. I have people that I look to from a spiritual point of view, from a home point of view and a friendship point of view. Your friends are your mentors in business, and let me tell you why. I've got a close 1 or 2 friends that are real friends to me, and they would tell me, and I would sit with them and sometimes sulk about things and say, I just can't understand why this is happening and that sort of thing. So they're answering you as a friend, but they're actually giving you business advice. So it depends. So there's a mentorship that goes on there, and then I find a big mentor in a business partner of mine, Hassan Jogi. He's more elderly than what I am. His approach is a bit different to what mine is. I think it's because he's been through the mill much more times than I have. So he's a bit more hardcore than what I am, actually. But in the end of the day, he's a mentor from the point of view that I see the mentorship in the age. I'm not saying that he's very old, but he's much more mature than what I am.
But you respect and recognize the experience.
And the years that he's got behind him is much more there on that side. I do look at people, I follow people like Richard Branson, by the way, he tweeted me back recently.
Wonderful. It's always nice when you get people who are tweeting you back there.
And I was like, Richard Branson tweeting me back, that's interesting.
That's pretty cool.
It made my day. But in the end of the day, he's somebody that you look at and you ask yourself, okay, I don't know if you know how he runs his business now. He sits in the hammock all day on his island, just making the decisions. But you ask yourself...
Something we're all working towards.
Yes, and you ask yourself the question. And the question is that, do we actually look at the paths that people traveled to get to where they are, because nobody gets to the end destination by waking up on that side.
Not at all.
So in the end of the day, I know I've been following his books. I know there's a couple of books. I know the title is a bit strange, but it's called Screw It, Let's Do It. And that's a book that I really look at all the time, because I love that one thing that he unlocked in me, and that the one thing that he unlocked in me through that book was sometimes you just have to do it. So it's either you're going to fail at it, or otherwise you're going to win with it. In the end of the day, you're not going to know if you didn't try.
Before I move on to the next question, and that's important that you say that, because I think sometimes procrastination is the demon which hinders actual progress. And it simply is that you're so worried about the end result being perfect that you're not actually doing the stuff and getting it out. And I think people just need to do stuff and get it out, because you'll be surprised or amazed at the results. I think that affects a lot of entrepreneurs. I know I've had that experience, so it's critical for people to understand that particular thing. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
I'm also it's true that people don't wake up on the other side of what they're dreaming about, but you have to begin with the end in mind in order to mentally prepare yourself.
Correct. Yes.
So
we drive past people in the road and we say to ourselves, this guy is driving an S500, the latest one, whatever.
Yeah.
And people do that all the time. Oh, he must be having a lot of money, this kind of thing. I'm talking about other people. But you know what? He did not get that Mercedes-Benz just like that. Nobody thinks about the path that people actually walk to get where they need to get to.
Yes.
So I mean, that's something that we need to be cognizant about all the time.
Faizal, how would you advise aspiring or existing business owners on selecting a correct mentor? Because mentorship is extremely important. I always advise it also, but how would you advise?
I think it's the same as collecting and finding yourself going to a medical practitioner. I think that if you find out that your doctor is not good for you, well, I keep going to this doctor and you know what, my heart problems are getting worse.
Of course.
Are you going to continue going to that doctor? You're not going to continue going to the doctor. I think it's the same thing. Why don't you find a mentor that you feel is good for you? A lot of times some of these mentors are busy people and they cannot afford you that time. But therefore I look for that mentorship even in people like, I would open Dr. Phil's books. I open Oprah's books. Steve Jobs. I look at their biographies. Sometimes you don't need to speak to Steve Jobs because he's unable to talk to you.
Way to learn.
Look at his biography, understand the road that he walked, and understand why you are faced with certain adversity most of your time as an entrepreneur. It's how you deal with adversity is actually being an entrepreneur, because every day is a challenge.
The resilience that you bring forward.
Of course, yes. I don't know, some people call us cockroaches. I don't know, I'm not sure.
Cockroaches.
Yes, because we just need to be very hardy, and that's it.
So Faizal, you're known for your strong work ethic. It's something that I think you pride yourself on. And you've also confessed you don't have a social life. But would you recommend the constant hard grind as a key to success? I mean, or should there's got to be a balance also of work and professional and personal development? I mean, life is like that, right?
Everyone's spoken to me about that recently, and I get knocked on this question all the time. So I'm very happy that you're asking the question.
Because with personal development, there's a certain rejuvenation about it, coupled with the strategic, dedicated commitment to building something.
You're 100% right. But for some odd reason, I see it and I don't see it sometimes. And I maybe know that I'm wrong where that's concerned, but I feel that it's not part of my plan right now. So the funny thing is that there are things that people need to do to get themselves to those spaces. And one of these work ethics that you're talking about is that I believe that not enough people are dealing with their goals. But when I talk about goals, I'm not talking about long-term goals. I'm not talking about the yacht and the Rolls-Royce. I'm not talking about by the end of this financial year we need to make R1 million. I'm talking about the short-term goals which are defined in a daily basis scenario. So what I do on a daily basis is I've changed my diary system and my task list system until about a month ago because I have Apple devices and they integrate very well. So your iPhone, the iPad and the MacBook Air integrates well. So that means if I type something there within 5 minutes, it's on my phone. So it means I can walk out of the office and
pretty streamlined.
Yes, yeah. So, but let me tell you about the system I use there. Every single day, I have a task list on my phone, and they got these little circles next to it. And as I finish it off, news editorial, yes, that, yes, that. What happens is they just clear off as we go along. The things that I didn't do falls over for the next day. I believe that that's a key focus to your work ethic model. You can only get it right if you're gonna sit there every day, striking the things off that you needed to do for that day. I'm gonna give you some mathematics around this. If you have 100 employees,
my math is not good, so you're gonna have to be clear about it.
It's fine. It's round figures. If we have 100 employees,
right,
and everybody does 10 things for the day that they struck off for the day, can that company measure its productivity?
Absolutely.
Exactly, this is what I'm saying. So why do we come into our spaces and say, I want to be this and I want to be that, I want to be worth that amount and that amount, but we have no plan in place. You want to put a plan in place for the next year, but you're not putting a plan in place for the day. It's 300 odd days to make that year.
So you will defend then the constant hard grind by saying that until you practice and hone the perfection of meeting short-term goals, will then you allow yourself to be able to sort of unravel in a way.
Correct. Yes, the only time that I took a break, Nazreen, and I'm not lying to you, you can go check with anyone that's around me. The only time
I think, yeah, we'll give our viewers that challenge to do that.
I went off to Umrah, and that's the only time that I actually took a back step, and people with me were like, they told me, are you sure you're not going to get sick or something because you're not doing what you normally do?
You're not doing work.
Yes. You can ask Mr. Jogi. I stay with him when I'm in Durban. He'll tell you how it is, whether it's at home. There's nothing else we talk about but getting things on the road and establishing it. But there's a sense of responsibility with that. So I know I'm a bit hardcore where that's concerned, but in the end of the day, you must understand that there are staff, there are people around you, that you're not talking, when you make decisions, it's not for your life. It's for everyone around you.
You're building a massive
And so I'm
business.
concerned about that all the time. And so those are the things that drive me all the time.
Yeah.
And my mother's been a big support, and I want to see her smiling about these things, and that's the greatest thing for me.
So now, to wrap up what's been a rather interesting interview, what are your final words of advice for aspiring or existing entrepreneurs?
Everyone says this, and I think it's a cliche, but it is about dreams. I do think you need to dream, and I'm going to give you an example with this one. There were two things that I wanted when I was younger. One was, I'm into Mercedes-Benz, not because it comes with a certain status, but I loved Mercedes-Benz from younger. It was my thing. And I loved the Rolls-Royce. And those are two interesting stories. So back in the day when we started that company in town, me and my brother, we would pass then Orbit Motors in Cape Town, so off the N1 we would see this Mercedes-Benz dealership, and I would stop there every second to every third day and peek in by the window of the Mercedes to see what it looks like to be inside. I eventually started buying Mercedes only, and so I bought my fourth one now recently. So I've stuck to Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. I used to collect models of Rolls-Royce cars. I eventually bought the classic Rolls-Royce, which we rented out for weddings and that kind of thing. And everyone said, I can't believe you got a Rolls-Royce. And it wasn't about the Rolls-Royce. For me it was that power of manifestation is part of your dreams. Whatever you see yourself to be, you can be. And no one can interfere in that. Ask you a question. When you're sleeping at night and you dream, can someone else come in there and interject and take the dream away from you?
No.
It's the same in real life. Whatever you dream, no one can take that away from you.
It's been such a pleasure chatting with you on BizToday. I think it was necessary for us to get you in studio.
I hope there was some interesting information for you.
For people to understand also what the energy and the determination that's required to build such a massive organization. So we really thank you for taking time out of your massively hectic schedule and joining us.
Nazreen, it's given me a good insight to check how your work is going at the same time.
Wonderful. I got my boss in the studio.
I'm able to monitor your shoot at the moment, and that went off well.
Wonderful.
So thank you for having me.
Excellent. That was Faizal Sayed, CEO of Deen TV, our successful entrepreneur of the week. Coming up, we've got a very special interview also with Alon Reyes of Reyes Corp. We were very fortunate to attend a fantastic workshop for entrepreneurs called Shift Questions, sponsored by Nedbank. But all that and more coming up.